Howdy folks, Zapper here, aka Sean, and I have just completed the initiative movement and combat phase. And in this game there is, so you have an initiative movement and combat phase, and then you have a basic movement and combat phase. So you're not always going to have an initiative movement in combat phase, and that just basically depends on if you have an initiative player. And basically with the initiative player, it's based on victory points, and there's a certain threshold that, or a certain criteria, victory point criteria differential that needs to be met to be called an initiative player. But basically, if you outscore your opponent in VPs, and that's determined by the scenario what the differential is. But if you outscore your opponent, then you get an extra phase. So it kind of, if you have the momentum, that's when you get the initiative. So the Russians had the initiative on turn 1 because it was kind of like a surprise. The NATO and the Allies didn't expect to be attacked. So that's why the Russians start with the initiative. So they basically get an extra phase. And the Allies do get to attack and counterattack. But the Russians have the advantage. So anyway, so if you look down here in the southern corner here, so you got Belarus right here. We got the Belarusians they invaded Poland, and so we have, I think it's 2 brigades right there, and they were not, I don't remember correctly, but I believe they eliminated a unit that was here, but I can't remember if they did or not. And I'll probably end up butchering most of these names, but Bialystok, they've got that surrounded, and they were able to reduce that unit there, but they weren't able to totally eliminate them. And then up here, so we have the Russians, they started up here, and there wasn't, the only resistance that they encountered was in this spot right there. All these other cities, all these clearing markers, those are cities that the Russians have to capture. There wasn't any units in those, so, but we left, there wasn't any Polish units for them to fight, but we have to clear them of resistance so that we can use those cities to help trace supply, and can also get victory points for them. And as you can see, this Polish unit started here, and hopefully they'll delay these guys here. That was what the plan is anyway. All right, and then up here, so starting from Kaliningrad, we had a little bit of movement south. That Polish unit started from here, and they moved up, and hopefully they'll be able to delay this Russian, I believe it's a division, I want to say, or a corps. Yeah, it's a corps. So there's the corps headquarters. But so the Polish unit here moved over here to try to delay, and then I left the 1st Cav, 2nd Brigade of the 1st Cav there. So, because I don't know what the Russians are going to do. Are they going to come down and try to hit this? Or are they going to come over here and try to take this area here? We don't know what's going to happen. So that's why I left the 1st Cav where it was. Because I guess, in my mind, if I move the 1st Cav over to here, then the Russians would just go around this way. So that's kind of why I did that. And then we had some more. We have a partial brigade moved down to here, captured that town, and then I left these units in place because I had a pretty big skirmish here. So in the town of Eblag, there was only that headquarters that you see right there. So the Russians, they have, that's a brigade and a battalion. And they threw a couple aircraft in there for air support. And then the Polish decided that they were going to support that headquarters, because you never want to lose a headquarters. That's a pretty serious deal when you lose a headquarters. So the Polish decided that they were going to throw one of their air units in there to support. They also supported with this helicopter, which is that blue marker right there. And then, let me see, where is... So there was no ensuing air battle. So this is basically, so on the detection track, whenever you have aircraft, you always have to see if they're detected or early detected. So you roll on here, and if you get a D, it's detected, which means there's no interceptor fighting. But the Soviets did have an interceptor escort, and then the Poles also had interceptors flying as well to see if there was going to be any air-to-air combat, but nobody rolled. Early detection is when the interceptors can fight, so nobody rolled good enough. They all, I think they rolled just the detection, which means that that your aircraft can only be attacked by SAMs, by surface-to-air missiles. So there was no air-to-air combat because nobody was detected, and the SAMs were able to disrupt these a little bit, so that's where you get the -2 and the -1 to the amount of support that they can provide. So if you look here, so whenever you're doing combat support or close air support, the last number, the 4, that's how many, it's a die roll modifier, so they can give you up to a +4, or actually minuses for the attacker is good, so they can give you -4 on a die roll if everything works to your favor. And you can support a combat with up to 2 aircraft, or actually you can support it, you can contribute up to a -6. So after the SAM fire was effective. So you had -2. So this aircraft would give a die roll modifier of -4, but because the SAMs kind of shook the pilot, he only contributed -2. And then this one was he can support with up to a die roll modifier of -3, but the SAMs gave him a +1. So overall, we could have a die roll modifier of -7, which is at a max is a -6, but then +3 because of the SAM fire. So it was a -4 DRM for the Soviets. And basically we were able to reduce that headquarters there. After everything was said and done, after all the planes were flying overhead dropping bombs and the helicopter support and all that, the Russians were able to reduce that headquarters, which they were kind of hoping that they could eliminate that headquarters, but it didn't happen. It'll probably happen next turn though. We'll see, or during the basic combat phase. They'll probably knock that guy out because there's really nobody to help. If you see that this brigade here came from all the way over here, and they were only able to get right there. So they'll probably stay there though, because that's key terrain. It's an urban area. You have a port and an airfield, so we don't want to give that up to the Russians. So that's pretty much what happened on this map. Now, on the operational map, or excuse me, the strategic map, we had a lot of movement. So the Belarusians moved in, took over that land area, also took over that land area. Now if they successfully clear the capital, then basically they'll completely capture Lithuania. Then we had Russian forces move into Riga, Latvia. We had an air assault into Kazim. And then we had a brigade move into Vidzim. I think our brigade moved into Tartu. Brigade moved into Narva. Couldn't quite make it to Estonia. Soviet Navy or Russian Navy didn't really do anything. They didn't move a whole lot. And then we had the American carrier battle group and then an amphibious assault group moved into the Bornholm Basin. They were in the North Sea, so now they moved here, so we're going to get some marine stuff involved here very shortly. So, but there you can see that's kind of what everything's looking like. And then we still got some units left in Russia. Airborne Brigade, Air Assault Brigade, supply units, got a bunch of helicopters. Those guys will move here soon. And then here's our losses so far. Let's see, I don't remember. These are so close in color, I don't remember. So we have the Latvians are the darker blue with the white numbering, and then we have the Estonians, which are the lighter blue with black, so these must be the Lithuanians. And if I looks like there's no Lithuanian units on the map, so we basically, the Russians took out the Lithuanian army, and then the Latvian army, doesn't look like there's anything left for those guys, and then the Lithuanian army, looks like there is like a company. I think the 2 lines is a company, so definitely not looking good for the NATO guys at the moment. And there's our air situation. These guys in the ready box are the only ones that can provide any kind of close air support for the basic movement combat phase. These are the guys, or these are the air units that can provide interceptor or air-to-air combat. They can perform air-to-air combat only, basically protecting any of these units that decide they want to do close air support. And then this is what can perform ground support missions or strikes for the Russians. These guys have all flown, so they're done, and these guys were aborted this turn. So that's pretty much it. Oh yeah, I forgot. 2nd Armored Cavalry Regiment, they moved from Germany to Poland, and then when they get a chance to move again, they'll move into Poland, which will actually place them on this map over here. So they can enter in any road space along this edge of the map. So anyway, there you have it. Initiative move and combat phase is done. Next thing will be the basic move and combat phase. So until next time.